You want war? We'll show you war. Admiral Gabriel Crawford's words echoed through the bridge of the HSS Defiant, now scarred and battered from its recent engagement with the Chalnoth warship Fang of Conquest. The human vessel had sustained heavy damage, but it had managed to disable the alien ship's main weapons in a fierce space battle that would go down in galactic history. The Orion Arm, once a peaceful sector of human colonies, now burned with the fires of an unprovoked attack by the Chalnoth Empire. The militaristic alien race had shattered the uneasy peace of the galactic community, throwing it into chaos with their aggressive expansion. Humanity, caught off guard but not unprepared, had risen to meet the challenge. Admiral Crawford, a decorated veteran of previous conflicts, led the counteroffensive against the Chalnoth forces. His tactical brilliance had brought the Defiant into close quarters with the Fang of Conquest, allowing for a daring boarding action. Crawford, along with a team of battle-hardened Marines, fought their way through the alien vessel's corridors, leaving a trail of defeated Chalnoth warriors in their wake. On the bridge of the Fang of Conquest, Crawford came face-to-face with Spica, the Chalnoth fleet commander. The alien's eyes gleamed with arrogance as it demanded humanity's unconditional surrender. Crawford's response, delivered with steel in his voice, would become legendary throughout the galaxy. With Spica captured and the Fang of Conquest set to self-destruct, Crawford and his team made a narrow escape back to the Defiant. As they pulled away, the Chalnoth vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, a temporary victory in what promised to be a long and brutal war. At Starbase Omega, military leaders gathered to debate their next move. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture. The Chalnoth Empire had been secretly building a massive armada with plans to conquer not just humanity, but multiple species across the galaxy. The United Earth government, recognizing the existential threat, declared a state of emergency and began mobilizing all available resources for war. Crawford, promoted to Fleet Admiral for his actions, received new orders. He was to form an elite strike force capable of penetrating deep into Chalnoth territory. The mission, to cripple the enemy's war machine before it could reach full strength. Crawford began selecting a diverse team of human specialists, each bringing unique skills crucial for the high-risk operation ahead. As the newly formed strike force began rigorous training, Spica underwent interrogation. The captured Chalnoth commander, perhaps underestimating human resolve, revealed crucial information about their military capabilities and weaknesses. This intelligence would prove invaluable in the coming conflict. Throughout the galaxy, other alien races watched the unfolding events with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Some considered allying with humanity, impressed by their strength and determination. Others, fearing Chalnoth retribution, hesitated to take sides. The balance of power in the galaxy hung by a thread, with humanity poised to tip the scales. As preparations for war intensified, one thing became clear. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The Chalnoth Empire had made a grave miscalculation in believing humans would be easy prey. Now they would learn the true meaning of Crawford's words. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see just how humanity would demonstrate its full military might against the Chalnoth threat. The corridors of Starbase Omega buzzed with activity as Fleet Admiral Gabriel Crawford strode purposefully towards the war room. His promotion still felt fresh, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy mantle. As the doors slid open, he was greeted by a sea of holograms displaying the latest intelligence on Chalnoth movements. "Admiral on deck!" called out Major Marcus Baker, snapping to attention. The room fell silent as Crawford approached the central holotable. "At ease," Crawford said, his eyes scanning the assembled team. "You've all been briefed on the gravity of our situation. The Chalnoth Empire threatens not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. It's time we showed them exactly what we're capable of." With a wave of his hand, Crawford brought up a detailed schematic of Mars. Task Force Nemesis will begin training immediately at our secret facility on the Red Planet. Major Baker, I want you to focus on developing counter strategies for Chalnoth battle formations. Dr. Sato, Your expertise in xenobiology will be crucial in creating biological countermeasures. And Lieutenant Commander O'Neill, I need you to push our stealth technology to its limits. As the team dispersed to their assigned tasks, Crawford turned his attention to the holographic image of the captured Chalnoth commander, Spica. The alien's reptilian features were set in a defiant snarl, but its eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. "What have we learned from our guest?" Crawford asked, addressing the intelligence officer monitoring the interrogation. "Sir, Spica has revealed critical information about the Chalnoth supply network," the officer reported. "It seems their entire war machine relies on a series of strategically placed depots. If we can disrupt this supply chain..." Crawford's eyes narrowed as he considered the implications. "We could cripple their offensive before it even begins. Excellent work. I want a detailed plan on my desk within 48 hours. Meanwhile, on Mars, Task Force Nemesis dove into their intensive training regimen. The secret facility, nestled within the vast Valles Marineris Canyon system, hummed with activity day and night. Major Baker stood before a holographic display of Chalnoth battle formations, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Their tactics rely heavily on overwhelming force," he explained to a group of tactical officers. "But if we can exploit the gaps in their formations with precision strikes, we can turn their own aggression against them." In another section of the facility, Dr. Emily Sato peered into a microscope, studying Chalnoth cellular structures. "Their biology is fascinatingly complex," she murmured to her team. "But every species has its weaknesses. If we can develop a targeted virus or bacteria, we might be able to incapacitate their forces without resorting to lethal measures." Lieutenant Commander Jack O'Neill's fingers flew across a control panel as he fine-tuned the cloaking systems for the task force's ships. "We're pushing the boundaries of what's possible with stealth technology," he said, a hint of excitement in his voice. "If my calculations are correct, we'll be able to slip right past their sensor arrays undetected." As Task Force Nemesis honed their skills, diplomatic efforts were underway to secure crucial alliances. Ambassador Derek Hawkins stood before the Galactic Council, his voice resonating through the Grand Chamber. "Esteemed representatives," Hawkins began, "the threat posed by the Chalnoth Empire extends far beyond humanity. We come before you today not just as victims of aggression, but as defenders of galactic peace." Holographic displays flickered to life, showing evidence of Chalnoth atrocities and their plans for conquest. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled alien delegates. "We do not stand alone in this fight," Hawkins continued. "Already the Zarkin have pledged their advanced technology to our cause, and the Aloran have offered the support of their telepathic abilities. Together, we can halt the Chalnoth advance and preserve the freedom of all sentient species." Back on Earth, the global economy shifted into high gear as factories retooled for war production. Dr. Alexei Kuznetsov stood in a cavernous assembly line, watching as the first prototypes of his new energy weapons rolled off the production line. "These weapons are capable of penetrating Chalnoth shields," Kuznetsov explained to a group of military officials. "By exploiting a specific frequency in their defensive systems, we can deliver devastating blows to their ships and ground forces alike." As preparations intensified, Admiral Crawford authorized a series of hit-and-run attacks on Chalnoth outposts. Commander Sarah Blackwood led these daring raids, her small fleet striking swiftly and vanishing before the enemy could mount an effective defense. "Target their long-range communication arrays," Blackwood ordered as her ships dropped out of hyperspace near a Chalnoth outpost. "We'll leave them blind and confused." The raids proved highly successful, gathering valuable intelligence while keeping the Chalnoth off balance. However, the conflict took an unexpected turn when a Chalnoth probe was detected approaching the Sol system. In a tense meeting aboard Starbase Omega, Crawford made a calculated decision. "We'll allow the probe limited access," he said, his voice grave. "Let them think our defenses are weaker than they truly are. It might just lure them into a trap of our own making." As the United Earth government activated the Titan Protocol, evacuating key personnel and resources to hidden bases throughout the solar system, Task Force Nemesis prepared for their first major operation. The sleek form of the HSS Shadow, their advanced stealth ship, stood ready in the hangar bay of the Mars facility. Just as the team was about to board, urgent news arrived from Earth. The interrogation of Spica had yielded a crucial piece of information: the existence of a secret Chalnoth superweapon. Crawford's holographic image flickered to life in the hangar bay. "This changes everything," he said, his expression grim. "Task Force Nemesis, your primary objective remains the same: disrupt their supply lines, but now you have a secondary mission of utmost importance. Locate and gather intelligence on this superweapon. The fate of humanity may well depend on it." As the members of Task Force Nemesis boarded the HSS Shadow, each felt the weight of their responsibility. The ship's engines hummed to life, and the hangar bay doors slowly opened, revealing the rust-red Martian landscape. Crawford's final words echoed in their minds as the Shadow lifted off, its stealth systems engaged. "You carry with you the hopes of not just humanity, but of all free species in the galaxy. Godspeed, Task Force Nemesis." The HSS Shadow accelerated away from Mars, quickly becoming invisible against the backdrop of space. As they set course for Chalnoth territory, the crew knew that the real test of their skills and courage was about to begin. The HSS Shadow sliced through the void of space, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to Chalnoth sensors. Inside the ship's bridge, Task Force Nemesis stood ready, their eyes fixed on the holographic display of their target, a massive Chalnoth supply depot orbiting Epsilon Eridani. Major Marcus Baker studied the depot's schematics, his mind already formulating entry and exit strategies. "We'll need to move fast and quiet," he said, addressing his strike team. "Dr. Sato's bio-disruptors will give us an edge, but we can't afford to raise any alarms." As the Shadow maneuvered into position, Lieutenant Commander Jack O'Neill's fingers danced across his console, fine-tuning their approach vector. "Stealth systems holding steady," he reported. "We're ghosts, sir." The moment of truth arrived as Baker led his team into the airlock. Dr. Emily Sato handed each of them a sleek, gun-like device. "Remember," she cautioned, "these bio-disruptors are calibrated to Chalnoth physiology. One shot will incapacitate them without leaving a trace." With a hiss of depressurization, the airlock opened, and Baker's team launched themselves towards the depot. Their mag boots engaged as they landed silently on the outer hull, the vastness of space at their backs. Inside the depot, Chalnoth guards patrolled the corridors, unaware of the infiltrators in their midst. Baker held up a closed fist, signaling his team to halt as a pair of guards rounded the corner. In one fluid motion, he raised his bio-disruptor and fired. The Chalnoth dropped without a sound, their scaled bodies twitching briefly before going still. "Clear," Baker whispered, and the team pressed on. They reached the central control hub without incident, a testament to their stealth and the effectiveness of Sato's weapons. O'Neill immediately set to work, his cybernetic interface linking with the depot's systems. "I'm in," he announced after a tense minute. "Uploading the virus now." On their helmet displays, the team watched as the virus spread through the depot's network. Inventory logs scrambled, fuel distribution systems malfunctioned, and false alarms began to trigger throughout the facility. "Mission accomplished," Baker said, allowing himself a small smile. "Let's exfil—" His words cut off as a flashing alert appeared on their screens. O'Neill's eyes widened as he processed the incoming data. "Sir, I've stumbled onto something big. There's intel here about a Chalnoth superweapon facility." Before they could digest this information, Admiral Crawford's voice crackled over their comms. "Change of plans. Task Force Nemesis. We've detected the same intel at Starbase Omega. Your new primary objective is to locate and neutralize this superweapon threat. Proceed with extreme caution." As Task Force Nemesis made their way back to the Shadow, the implications of their discovery deeply affected on their minds. The success of their mission at the depot now seemed like a mere prelude to the challenges that lay ahead. Back on Earth, Ambassador Derek Hawkins stood before the Zarkian High Council, his impassioned plea for alliance echoing through the crystalline chamber. "Esteemed counselors," he said, his voice steady despite the stakes. Humanity has struck a significant blow against the Chalnoth Empire. But we cannot stand alone against the storm that is coming. Your advanced shield technology could be the key to safeguarding not just Earth, but all free worlds in our galaxy. The Zarkin representatives conferred silently, their bioluminescent skin pulsing with patterns of light, their native form of communication. After what seemed an eternity, the High Speaker stepped forward. Ambassador Hawkins, the alien's melodious voice resonated, the Zarkin have long valued our neutrality, but in the face of this Chalnoth aggression, we can no longer stand idle. We will provide you with our shield technology. May it serve as a bulwark against the darkness that threatens us all. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as humanity's early victories galvanized support. The Aloran, a race of powerful telepaths, pledged their abilities to enhance human intelligence gathering. Other species, inspired by Earth's defiance, began to rally to the cause. These alliances proved their worth all too soon. As Task Force Nemesis pursued leads on the Chalnoth superweapon, a massive enemy fleet descended upon the human colony of New Horizon. Commander Sarah Blackwood stood on the bridge of the HCS Defender. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the tactical display. The Chalnoth forces outnumbered them 3-1, their ships forming an ominous wall of destruction. "All ships, battle formation Delta," Blackwood ordered, her voice calm despite the odds. "Prepare to deploy Kuznetsov energy weapons on my mark." As the Chalnoth fleet opened fire, the newly installed Zarkin shields flared to life around the human ships, absorbing the barrage. Blackwood allowed herself a grim smile. "Return fire," she commanded. The Kuznetsov weapons lashed out, beams of coruscating energy that sliced through Chalnoth shields like paper. Explosions blossomed in the void as enemy ships succumbed to the devastating assault. For 3 days, the battle raged. Human forces held their ground, their superior technology and tactics allowing them to inflict disproportionate losses on the Chalnoth. Yet the enemy pressed on, waves of ships replacing those destroyed. Just as exhaustion began to set in among the defenders, a flash of light heralded the arrival of Zarkian reinforcements. Sleek, crystalline ships joined the fray, their advanced weapons carving swaths through the Chalnoth formations. Faced with this unexpected resistance, the Chalnoth fleet began to falter. Ship by ship, they retreated, leaving the space around New Horizon littered with debris, a testament to the cost of their failed assault. As the dust settled on New Horizon, Task Force Nemesis found themselves navigating an entirely different kind of battlefield. The HSS Shadow emerged from hyperspace into a dense asteroid field, jagged rocks tumbling chaotically through the void. "Sensors are picking up energy signatures consistent with automated defense platforms," O'Neill reported, his hands flying over the controls. "They're well hidden, but they're definitely there." Baker leaned forward, studying the tactical display. "Can we slip past them?" Before O'Neill could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Warning klaxons blared as a section of the holographic display turned red. "We've been hit!" Dr. Sato called out, racing to seal off a damaged compartment. "Port shield generator is offline." "Evasive maneuvers," Baker ordered, but he knew their options were limited in the crowded asteroid field. The Shadow weaved through the deadly obstacle course, its stealth systems struggling to cope with the strain. Beams of energy lanced out from hidden emplacements, scoring glancing blows against the ship's hull. "There!" O'Neill shouted, pointing to a gap in the asteroid field. "I'm picking up a small moon. If we can reach it, we might be able to lose them and effect repairs." With a final burst of speed, the Shadow broke free of the asteroid field, streaking towards the barren moon. As they entered its thin atmosphere, Baker allowed himself a moment of relief. But he knew their troubles were just getting started. Somewhere beyond this lifeless rock lay the Chalnoth superweapon, a threat they had to neutralize despite the toll. The Shadow touched down on the moon's pockmarked surface, its damaged systems groaning in protest. As the team prepared to assess the extent of their injuries, None of them could have imagined the ancient secrets that lay buried beneath the lunar dust, secrets that would soon change the course of the war. As the dust settled around the HSS Shadow, Baker and his team emerged cautiously from the ship. The barren lunar landscape stretched out before them, pockmarked with craters and jagged rock formations. O'Neill's sensors swept the area, searching for any signs of Chalnoth activity. "All clear for now," he reported, his voice tense. "But we're picking up some strange energy readings about half a click to the east." Dr. Sato frowned, studying the data on her handheld device. "That can't be right. These readings, they're not Chalnoth in origin. In fact, they don't match any known technology in our database." Baker's eyes narrowed. "All right, team, let's move out and investigate. Stay alert." As they made their way across the lunar surface, their mag boots kicking up small clouds of dust with each step, the team couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far bigger than they had anticipated. They crested a small ridge and stopped short. Before them lay a massive structure, partially buried beneath millennia of lunar regolith. Its sleek, otherworldly architecture stood in stark contrast to the rugged terrain around it. "My God," Sato breathed, her eyes wide behind her helmet visor. This is incredible. An alien outpost right here under our noses." Baker activated his comm link. "Admiral Crawford, this is Major Baker. We've discovered something you need to see." Crawford's holographic image flickered to life above Baker's wrist computer. His expression was one of terrifying excitement as he took in the scene before him. "Outstanding work, Task Force Nemesis. This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. Proceed with caution, but gather all the intel you can." The team approached the ancient structure, its entrance sealed by a massive door covered in intricate alien symbols. Dr. Sato ran her hands over the surface, her scientific curiosity overriding her usual caution. "These markings," she murmured, "they're like nothing I've ever seen before. But there's a pattern here, a logic to it. I think I can decipher this." As Sato worked on unlocking the alien door, O'Neill kept watch, his modified weapons at the ready. "I don't like this," he muttered. "We're too exposed out here. If the Chalnoth have any patrols in the area—" Baker nodded grimly. "Agreed. Dr. Sato, how much longer?" "Just a few more minutes," she replied, her fingers flying over her datapad. "I've almost cracked the—" With a low rumble, the massive door began to slide open, revealing a dark passage beyond. The team exchanged glances, then Baker gave a sharp nod. "Let's move. O'Neill, take point. Sato, stay close." They entered the alien outpost, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. As they progressed deeper into the structure, dormant systems began to flicker to life around them, responding to their presence. "This place," Sato said, her voice filled with awe. "It's been waiting for someone to return. Look at how it's reacting to us." They reached what appeared to be a central control room, its walls lined with holographic displays showing star charts and complex data streams. Sato immediately set to work, interfacing her equipment with the alien technology. Hours passed as the team explored the outpost, uncovering its secrets. Sato's eyes grew wide as she processed the information flowing across her screen. "Admiral," she called out, her voice urgent, "you need to see this." Crawford's hologram appeared once more, his expression grave as Sato explained her findings. "The Chalnoth," she said, "their physiology, it has a weakness. Their exoskeletons are highly resistant to most forms of attack, but they're vulnerable to a specific frequency of electromagnetic radiation." O'Neill leaned in, his cybernetic eye whirring as he analyzed the data. "If we could modify our weapons to emit pulses at this frequency, we could turn the tide of this war," Crawford finished, his voice filled with persistence. "Excellent work, Dr. Sato. O'Neill, I want you to start on those modifications immediately. Use whatever resources you need from the shadow." As O'Neill set to work, Baker and Sato continued to explore the outpost, gathering every scrap of intelligence they could find. The true purpose of the facility remained a mystery, but its value to the war effort was beyond measure. Days passed as the team worked tirelessly, repairing the shadow and preparing for their next move. Finally, O'Neill emerged from the ship, a modified weapon in his hands. "It's ready," he announced. "We've weaponized the shadow with this new EM pulse technology. If Dr. Sato's calculations are correct, it should be devastating against Chalnoth defenses." Baker nodded, a grim smile on his face. "Then it's time we put it to the test. Admiral Crawford, we're ready to move on the Chalnoth superweapon facility." Crawford's hologram flickered to life one last time. "Good luck, Task Force Nemesis. The fate of humanity may well rest on the success of this mission. Godspeed!" As the team boarded the shadow, each felt the weight of responsibility settling on their shoulders. The ship's engines hummed to life, lifting them off the lunar surface and into the star-studded void beyond. O'Neill's hands danced across the controls as they approached the treacherous asteroid field guarding the Chalnoth facility. "Entering the field now," he reported, activating modified weapon systems. The shadow weaved through the asteroids, its newly upgraded weapons lashing out at the hidden defense platforms. Beams of carefully tuned electromagnetic energy struck their targets, causing Chalnoth systems to short out and go dark. As they neared the heart of the asteroid field, a massive structure came into view, the Chalnoth superweapon facility. Its imposing form bristled with weapon emplacements and shield generators. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the shadow. "Energy spike detected!" O'Neill shouted. "They're powering up the superweapon!" Baker's mind focused. "We're out of time. Prepare for immediate assault. Dr. Sato, you and your team focus on gathering intel. O'Neill, you're with me. We're taking that weapon offline." As the shadow streaked towards the facility, Task Force Nemesis steeled themselves for the battle ahead. The destiny of the universe hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. The shadow rocketed towards the Chalnoth facility, its newly modified weapon systems tearing through the outer defenses. "Energy levels are spiking!" Dr. Sato called out, her eyes fixed on the readouts. "They're initiating some kind of self-destruct sequence." Baker's mind raced. "O'Neill, options!" The lieutenant commander's fingers flew across his console. "Sir, we might be able to contain the blast using the Shadow's experimental drive system. It's risky, but it's our only shot." "Do it!" Baker ordered without hesitation. O'Neill nodded grimly and began the complex sequence of commands. The Shadow's engines whined as they pushed beyond their normal limits. A shimmering bubble of distorted space-time began to form around the Chalnoth facility. "Brace for impact!" Baker shouted. The facility exploded in a blinding flash of light and energy. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the bubble would collapse under the strain. Then, miraculously, it held. The destruction was contained within the localized field of warped space-time. As the light faded, a collective sigh of relief swept through the Shadow's bridge. Their victory was short-lived, however, as warning klaxons began to blare throughout the ship. "Multiple systems failing," O'Neill reported, his voice tense. "The strain on the drive was too much. We're losing power fast." Baker gripped his command chair. "All hands, damage control. Sato, get me a status report on our comms. We need to contact Admiral Crawford." As the team struggled to keep their crippled vessel operational, a burst of static cut through the chaos. Admiral Crawford's hologram flickered to life, his expression grave. "Task Force Nemesis, we have a critical situation." Crawford's voice crackled through the damaged speakers. "The Chalnoth leadership has activated a device called Nova Prime in the Rigel system. It's designed to induce a supernova. Multiple inhabited worlds are at risk of total annihilation." The bridge fell silent as the weight of this news settled over them. Baker was the first to speak. "Admiral, we've sustained heavy damage. Our ability to respond is limited." Crawford nodded. "Understood, Major. Get your ship operational and rendezvous with our forces as soon as possible. We're going to need every asset we have for what's coming next." As the transmission ended, Baker turned to his team. "You heard the Admiral. Let's get this bird flying again. We're not out of this fight yet." Across the galaxy, Commander Sarah Blackwood stood on the bridge of the HCS Defender, watching as her combined fleet pushed back against the Chalnoth forces. The new FTL disruption technology was proving its worth, trapping enemy ships and allowing for precise, devastating strikes. "Commander," her tactical officer called out, "the Chalnoth are changing their attack pattern. They're on suicide runs." Blackwood's eyes narrowed as she watched several Chalnoth ships break formation, accelerating towards key positions in her fleet. "All ships, evasive maneuvers. Concentrate fire on those incoming vessels." The space around them lit up with weapons fire as Allied ships scrambled to defend themselves against this new, desperate tactic. Explosions bloomed in the void as some Chalnoth ships were destroyed, while others slammed into their targets with devastating effect. "Status report," Blackwood demanded as the chaos subsided. "We've lost the Intrepid and the Valiant," her XO reported grimly. "The Zarkin cruiser Starfire is heavily damaged but still operational. Our lines are holding, but barely." Blackwood nodded, her mind already formulating new strategies. "Reconfigure our formation. We need to create a more fluid defense that can adapt to these suicide runs. And get me a direct line to Admiral Crawford. He needs to know about this development." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Alexei Kuznetsov paced restlessly in his lab, surrounded by holographic displays of complex equations and star charts. His team worked frantically around him, each focused on a different aspect of their monumental task. "Dr. Kuznetsov," one of his assistants called out, "I think we found something." Kuznetsov rushed over, his eyes scanning the data. Yes, this could work. A precisely calibrated gravitational wave could potentially disrupt the artificial supernova process. But delivering it... He trailed off, his mind racing through the possibilities. The challenge wasn't just creating the wave, but finding a way to direct it accurately across vast distances without causing unintended damage to other star systems. Kuznetsov's musings were interrupted by a priority transmission. Admiral Crawford's face appeared on the main screen, lines of worry etched deep into his features. "Doctor, please tell me you have good news," Crawford said without preamble. Kuznetsov nodded cautiously. "We have a theoretical solution, Admiral, but implementation will be challenging." As Kuznetsov explained the concept, Crawford's expression shifted from concern to guarded hope. "We may have a way to make this work, Doctor. I'm ordering the deployment of the HSS Prometheus." Kuznetsov's eyes widened. "The experimental ship with the gravitic manipulation drive? That could be exactly what we need." Crawford nodded. "I'm assigning Captain Elena Vasquez to command the mission. Her background in astrophysics makes her uniquely qualified for this task. I need you and your team to work directly with her to integrate your gravitational wave theory with the Prometheus's systems." As the call ended, Kuznetsov turned to his team, a new fire in his eyes. "You heard the Admiral. Let's make this happen." Aboard the HSS Prometheus, Captain Elena Vasquez stood before her assembled crew. The ship hummed with power, its experimental systems primed for their most crucial test yet. "I won't sugarcoat this," Vasquez began, her voice steady and determined. "What we're about to attempt has never been done before. The Nova Prime device in the Rigel system threatens billions of lives. Our job is to stop it." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We'll be working with Dr. Kuznetsov's team to modify our gravitic drive. If we succeed, we'll save countless worlds. If we fail..." Vasquez left the sentence unfinished. She didn't need to spell out the consequences. Every member of her crew understood the stakes. "Engineering, begin interfacing with Dr. Kuznetsov's data. Navigation, plot our course to the Rigel system. We leave in 1 hour." As her crew sprang into action, Vasquez turned to look out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a device capable of destroying entire solar systems was ticking down to activation. The fate of billions now rested on the shoulders of the Prometheus and her crew. The ship's engines flared to life, propelling them towards their date with destiny. As they accelerated to FTL speeds, Vasquez couldn't help but wonder what other Nova Prime devices might be out there, waiting to be unleashed upon unsuspecting worlds. The thought sent a chill down her spine. This mission was just the beginning of a much larger, more terrifying conflict. But for now, her focus had to be on the task at hand. Stop Nova Prime. Save Rigel. One impossible feat at a time. As the Prometheus streaked through hyperspace, Task Force Nemesis limped back to Allied territory, their ship battered, but their spirits unbroken. The intel they carried would prove crucial in the battles to come. Across the galaxy, ships were deploying, soldiers were mobilizing, and scientists were racing against time. Operation Starguard was beginning, and with it, the most critical phase of the war against the Chalnoth. In the vast expanse of space, the pieces were moving into place for a confrontation that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but countless species across the stars. The next few hours would shape the future of galactic civilization, and the cosmos itself held its breath in anticipation. Anticipation. As the HSS Prometheus dropped out of hyperspace into the Rigel system, Captain Elena Vasquez felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. The star at the center of the system loomed large on the monitor, its surface roiling with turbulent plasma. "Status report," Vasquez called out, her eyes fixed on the celestial behemoth before them. "Nova Prime device detected," Lieutenant Tran announced from his station. "It's already initiated the supernova process. We have less than 30 minutes before it reaches the point of no return." Vasquez nodded, her face set with stubborn persistence. "Engage the gravitic manipulation drive. Dr. Reeves, begin calibrating the gravitational wave output." The ship hummed with power as its experimental systems came online. Dr. Marcus Reeves, the Prometheus's chief science officer, worked feverishly at his console, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Captain," he said, his voice tense, "I'm detecting unusual fluctuations in the star's core. The Nova Prime device is more advanced than we anticipated. This won't be a simple process." Before Vasquez could respond, alarms blared throughout the bridge. "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected," Lieutenant Commander Ortiz shouted from Tactical. "Chalnoth warships incoming!" The space around them shimmered as a dozen Chalnoth vessels materialized, their weapons already charging. Vasquez's mind raced, formulating a strategy on the fly. "Helm, execute evasive pattern Theta," she ordered. "Ortiz, focus our defenses on protecting the gravitic drive. We can't afford to lose it." The Prometheus lurched into motion, its sleek form weaving between enemy fire. Vasquez watched as her crew worked in perfect synchronization, each member focused intently on their tasks. "Dr. Reeves," she called out, "how long until we can deploy the gravitational wave?" Reeves didn't look up from his calculations. 5 minutes, Captain, but I'll need a clear shot at the star's core." Vasquez nodded, then turned to her helmsman. "Lieutenant, plot a course that'll give us that clear shot. Use the star's gravity to slingshot us past the Chalnoth fleet if you have to." As the Prometheus danced through space, narrowly avoiding enemy fire, Vasquez's mind drifted momentarily to the larger conflict. Across the galaxy, she knew, Operation Starguard was in full swing. Admiral Crawford would be coordinating multiple task forces, all racing against time to find and disable the remaining Nova Prime devices. A violent shudder brought her attention sharply back to the present. "Direct hit to our port shields," Ortiz reported. "They're down to 60%. "Reroute power from non-essential systems," Vasquez ordered. "We need those shields." The battle raged on, with the Prometheus using its unique capabilities to stay one step ahead of the Chalnoth fleet. Vasquez employed unconventional tactics, using the ship's gravitic drive to create localized distortions in space-time, confusing enemy targeting systems. "Captain," Dr. Reeves called out suddenly, "I've got it! Gravitational wave calibrated and ready to deploy." Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. "Excellent work, Doctor. Helm, bring us into position. Ortiz, clear us a path." The Prometheus surged forward, its weapons blazing a trail through the Chalnoth formation. As they approached the optimal firing position, Vasquez felt the ship vibrate with scarcely controlled power. "Now, Dr. Reeves," she shouted, "deploy the gravitational wave." A beam of distorted space-time lanced out from the Prometheus, striking the star's turbulent surface. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly but surely, the roiling plasma began to calm. "It's working," Reeves reported, his voice filled with awe. "The Nova Prime device is losing its hold on the star's core." A cheer went up from the crew, but Vasquez remained focused. "Stay sharp, people. This isn't over yet." As if in response to her words, a massive Chalnoth dreadnought dropped out of hyperspace directly in their path. Its weapons powered up, preparing to deliver a killing blow to the Prometheus. Vasquez's mind raced. They had stabilized the star, but at a cost. The Prometheus had expended most of its energy in the process, leaving them vulnerable. "Captain," Ortiz said, his voice grim, "we don't have the power to both maintain the gravitational wave and defend ourselves." Vasquez closed her eyes for a brief moment, weighing her options. When she opened them again, there was a fierce light burning in them. "Divert all remaining power to the gravitic drive," she ordered. "We're going to create one last gravitational pulse. Make it strong enough to disable every ship in the system." Her crew looked at her in shock, understanding the implications. Such a pulse would leave the Prometheus completely defenseless, adrift in hostile territory. "Do it," Vasquez said firmly. "Send out a distress signal on all frequencies. With luck, our allies will reach us before the Chalnoth regroup." As her crew scrambled to obey, Vasquez stood tall on her bridge, watching as the massive pulse of gravitational energy expanded outward from the Prometheus. The Chalnoth ships, caught off guard, tumbled helplessly in space as their systems overloaded. In the sudden silence that followed, Vasquez allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. They had saved the Rigel system and countless lives. Now all they could do was wait and hope that help would arrive before the Chalnoth recovered. Little did Vasquez know that far away, aboard the HSS Shadow, Task Force Nemesis was already plotting a daring rescue mission. The war was just getting started, but in this moment, humanity had struck a crucial blow against the Chalnoth threat. As the Prometheus drifted in the void, its crew could only wonder what challenges awaited them in the battles to come. The silence aboard the HSS Prometheus was broken by the sudden crackle of the communication system. Captain Elena Vasquez, her face etched with exhaustion but her eyes still burning with tenacity, leaned forward in her command chair. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jack O'Neill of the HSS Shadow. We're here to get you out, Captain Vasquez. Hang tight." A collective sigh of relief swept through the bridge. Vasquez allowed herself a small smile before responding. "Glad to hear your voice, Shadow. We're running on emergency power only. What's your ETA?" "We're employing our stealth systems to slip past the Chalnoth patrols. ETA 5 minutes. Be ready for immediate evacuation." As the crew prepared for rescue, Vasquez's mind raced through the implications. Task Force Nemesis had come for them, but the battle was nowhere near the end. She knew the Chalnoth would regroup soon, and they needed to be long gone before that happened. True to O'Neill's word, the sleek form of the HSS Shadow shimmered into view outside the Prometheus's viewports 5 minutes later. The stealth ship's advanced cloaking technology had allowed it to navigate the treacherous space around them undetected. A boarding tube extended from the Shadow, connecting with the Prometheus's airlock. Major Marcus Baker led a team of Marines onto the disabled ship, their weapons at the ready. "Captain Vasquez," Baker said, saluting as he entered the bridge. "We're here to secure the ship and get you to safety." Vasquez nodded, but her expression remained resolute. "Thank you, Major, but I'm not abandoning my ship. We need to get the Prometheus operational again." Baker hesitated, clearly torn between his orders and the captain's dedication. Before he could respond, Dr. Emily Sato pushed past him, her arms full of equipment. "Then let's get to work," Sato said, her eyes gleaming with the challenge. "I've brought some experimental power cells that should jumpstart your systems." As Sato and her team began the arduous process of restoring power to the Prometheus, Vasquez turned to Baker. "Major, I need a full sitrep. What's happening out there?" Baker's face grew serious as he relayed the latest intelligence. "The Chalnoth Empire is in chaos, Captain. Civil war has broken out between Supreme Commander Zarketh's loyalists and a dissident faction led by someone named Zorax. Vasquez's eyes widened. The implications of a Chalnoth civil war were staggering. How is the Alliance responding? Admiral Crawford is taking full advantage of the situation, Baker explained. He's authorized a covert op to extract Zorax from the Chalnoth homeworld. Meanwhile, our fleets are pushing forward on multiple fronts. As they spoke, the lights on the bridge flickered back to life. Dr. Sato's voice came over the intercom, triumphant. We've restored primary power, Captain. Engines and weapons will be online in 10 minutes. Vasquez nodded, a plan already forming in her mind. Excellent work, Doctor. Major Baker, please inform Lieutenant Commander O'Neill that the Prometheus will be joining the Shadow for the return journey. Baker looked surprised. Captain, are you sure that's wise? You've been through a lot and... Vasquez cut him off with a sharp look. I appreciate your concern, Major, but I'm still fit for duty. This ship and her crew have a vital role to play in what's coming. As the Prometheus's systems came back online, the ship's sensors detected a massive energy surge from the direction of Chalnoth space. Vasquez's blood ran cold as she realized the implications. They're activating the remaining Nova Prime devices, she said, her voice tight with urgency. We need to rendezvous with the main fleet immediately. The Prometheus and the Shadow broke orbit, accelerating away from the Rigel system. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Vasquez received a priority transmission from Admiral Crawford. Captain Vasquez, it's good to see you're back in action, Crawford said, his holographic image flickering slightly. We're deploying every ship equipped with the new gravitational wave emitters to neutralize the Nova Prime threats. I need the Prometheus and the Shadow to join Commander Blackwood's task force in the Sirius sector. Vasquez nodded sharply. Understood, Admiral. We're on our way. As the two ships entered hyperspace, Vasquez couldn't help but marvel at how quickly the tide of war had turned. The Chalnoth, once seemingly unstoppable, were now fracturing from within. But she knew better than to underestimate them. Supreme Commander Zarketh would not go down without a fight. The journey to the Sirius sector was tense, filled with tactical briefings and system checks. When they dropped out of hyperspace, they found themselves in the midst of a massive space battle. Commander Sarah Blackwood's forces were engaged with a Chalnoth battle group protecting a Nova Prime device. Vasquez wasted no time. All hands battle stations. Helm, bring us in on Vector 227. Weapons, target the Chalnoth flagship with gravitational pulses. Let's give Commander Blackwood some breathing room. The Prometheus surged forward, its experimental gravitic drive allowing it to dance through the chaotic battlefield with unprecedented agility. The Shadow moved in perfect synchronization, using its stealth capabilities to flank the enemy. As they fought, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Colonel Jason Hawk's team had successfully extracted Zorax from the Chalnoth homeworld after a fierce firefight. The dissident leader was already providing crucial intelligence on Zarketh's final stronghold. The battle in the Sirius sector raged for hours, but eventually the combined might of the human-led alliance prevailed. The Nova Prime device was neutralized, and the remaining Chalnoth ships retreated. As the adrenaline of combat faded, Vasquez received another transmission from Admiral Crawford. His face was grim but determined. Captain, we've located Zarketh's stronghold. It's a heavily fortified space station orbiting a black hole at the edge of Chalnoth space. I'm assembling every ship we can spare for a final assault. Vasquez straightened in her chair, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. The Prometheus stands ready, Admiral. When do we leave? Crawford's expression softened slightly. Get your crew some rest, Captain. We'll rendezvous at these coordinates in 12 hours. Crawford out. As the transmission ended, Vasquez looked around at her exhausted but determined crew. They had been through hell and back, but she knew they would face whatever challenges lay ahead with unwavering courage. You heard the Admiral, she said, her voice carrying across the bridge. Get some rest. We've got a galaxy to save. As her crew filed out, Vasquez remained at her post, staring out at the star-filled void. Somewhere out there, Zarketh was preparing his final stand. And beyond that, a future that would be shaped by the outcome of their coming battle. She thought of all the species that had joined their alliance, of the Chalnoth colonies that had declared independence, of the countless lives hanging in the balance. The responsibility was enormous, but Vasquez felt ready to face it. As she finally allowed herself to retire to her quarters, Vasquez's mind was already racing with strategies and contingencies. The final battle loomed on the horizon, and she intended to be prepared for anything Zar Keth might throw at them. As Vasquez drifted off to sleep, the ship's gentle hum a comforting lullaby, she had no idea just how soon that final confrontation would come. 12 hours later, the Prometheus and Shadow emerged from hyperspace at the rendezvous coordinates. The sight that greeted them took Vasquez's breath away. A vast armada of ships stretched as far as the eye could see, representing every allied species in their coalition against the Chalnoth. "My God!" Lieutenant Ortiz whispered from his station. "I've never seen so many ships in one place." Vasquez nodded, her eyes scanning the impressive fleet. "This is it, people. The final push." A priority transmission came through, and Admiral Crawford's hologram materialized on the bridge. "Captain Vasquez, glad you could join us. We've located Zar Keth's stronghold. It's a heavily fortified space station orbiting a black hole at the edge of Chalnoth space." Vasquez's eyes widened. "A black hole? That's going to make our approach tricky." Crawford nodded grimly. "That's why I'm putting you in the Prometheus at the head of our vanguard. Your ship's gravitic drive gives us our best chance at creating a stable approach vector." "Understood, Admiral. We won't let you down." As the transmission ended, Vasquez turned to her crew. "You heard the man. We're leading this charge. Helm, plot a course to these coordinates. Dr. Reeves, I want you working with engineering to maximize our gravitic field output." The massive fleet moved out, a sea of metal and energy surging through the void. As they neared their destination, the effects of the black hole became increasingly apparent. Vasquez watched as the stars seemed to bend and twist in the view screen, distorted by the immense gravitational forces at play. "Prometheus to all ships," Vasquez broadcast. "We're entering the black hole's area of influence. Maintain formation and stay close." The Prometheus's engines strained as it pushed against the growing gravitational pull. Vasquez could feel the deck plates vibrating beneath her feet. "Activating gravitic field," Dr. Reeves announced. "Creating a stable corridor. Now." A shimmering tunnel of distorted space appeared before them, cutting through the chaotic gravitational eddies surrounding the fleet. Vasquez watched in awe as the Alliance ships followed in their wake, protected by the Prometheus's gravitational bubble. As they emerged from the corridor, Zar Keth's stronghold came into view. The massive space station loomed before them, a dark and twisted structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics as it orbited the event horizon of the black hole. "All ships, battle formations!" Admiral Crawford's voice crackled over the comms. "Engage the enemy!" The space around them erupted in chaos as Chalnoth ships poured from the station, engaging the Alliance fleet in a furious battle. Energy beams and missiles crisscrossed the void, punctuated by brilliant explosions. Aboard the Prometheus, Vasquez barked orders, coordinating with the Shadow and other Vanguard ships to maintain their position at the front of the assault. The ship rocked as it took fire, but its advanced shields held firm. "Captain," Dr. Sato's voice came over the comms, urgent and filled with static. "We're detecting a massive energy buildup from the station. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Before Vasquez could respond, a chilling transmission cut across all frequencies. Zar Keth's guttural voice filled the bridge, dripping with malice. "Foolish humans and your pathetic allies. You think you've cornered me? Let me show you the true power of the Chalnoth Empire." The space station's central spire began to glow with an ominous light. Vasquez's tactical display lit up with warnings as their sensors struggled to comprehend the readings. "It's some kind of gravity bomb," Dr. Sato reported, her voice tight with fear. "If it detonates, it could collapse the black hole. The resulting explosion would obliterate everything within several light years." Vasquez's mind raced. They needed to neutralize that bomb. but a frontal assault on the station would be suicide with that weapon active. As if in answer to her thoughts, a priority transmission came through from the shadow. Lieutenant Commander O'Neill's face appeared on screen, his expression grim but determined. "Captain Vasquez, we've got a plan. Dr. Sato has identified a flaw in the bomb's design. If we can get a team inside the station, we might be able to use it against them." Vasquez nodded sharply. "Do it! What do you need from us?" "Keep their fleet occupied. Commander Blackwood's forces will create a perimeter around the station. We're sending in Task Force Nemesis for the infiltration." As the shadow broke off to join Blackwood's ships, Vasquez turned her attention back to the battle at hand. The Prometheus danced through the chaos, its gravitic drive allowing it to perform maneuvers that left the Chalnoth pilots baffled. Time seemed to stretch as the battle raged on. Vasquez coordinated with the other Alliance ships, using the Prometheus's unique capabilities to turn the tide wherever the fighting was thickest. All the while, her thoughts were with Baker and his team, imagining the fierce combat they must be facing inside the station. Suddenly, a transmission broke through the battle chatter. It was Major Baker, his voice strained but triumphant. "This is Task Force Nemesis. We've secured the control room and neutralized Zarketh, standing by for further instructions." A cheer went up on the Prometheus's bridge, but Vasquez knew their job wasn't done yet. The gravity bomb was still active, and the black hole's pull was growing stronger by the second. "Captain," Dr. Reeves called out, his hands flying over his console, "I think I know how we can end this. If we can create a controlled singularity with our gravitic drive, we might be able to redirect the bomb's energy directly into the black hole." Vasquez's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. It was audacious, possibly suicidal, but it just might work. "Do it," she ordered, then opened a channel to Admiral Crawford. "Admiral, we have a plan to neutralize the bomb, but we'll need every ship with gravitic field generators to coordinate with us. And sir, you might want to order the rest of the fleet to fall back to a safe distance." As Crawford acknowledged and began issuing orders, Vasquez turned to her helm officer. "Take us in, nice and easy. We need to get as close to that station as possible without getting pulled into the black hole." The Prometheus slowly advanced, its gravitic drive straining against the immense gravitational forces. Around them, other ships with similar technology moved into formation, creating a network of gravitational fields that began to shape the space around them. "Task Force Nemesis," Vasquez transmitted. "On my mark, activate the bomb and get the hell out of there." The tension on the bridge was palpable as they waited for Baker's confirmation. When it came, Vasquez took a deep breath and gave the order that would decide the fate of the battle, and possibly the entire war. "Now!" The space station lit up like a newborn star as the gravity bomb detonated. At the same instant, the Prometheus and its allied ships activated their gravitic drives at full power. The fabric of space-time itself seemed to twist and contort as they shaped a tunnel of energy between the exploding station and the black hole. Vasquez watched in awe as the destructive power of the bomb was channeled directly into the event horizon. The black hole's accretion disk flared with blinding intensity, and for a moment she feared they had miscalculated. But then, miraculously, the chaos began to subside. The gravitational shockwave from the bomb's detonation tore through the remaining Chalnoth fleet, but the Alliance ships rode the wavefront to safety, protected by their combined gravitational fields. As the energy dissipated, Vasquez stared in wonder at the sight before her. The black hole, far from collapsing, had been stabilized. Its event horizon now glowed with an ethereal blue light, a lasting monument to the incredible battle that had just taken place. "Status report," Vasquez called out, her voice hoarse from shouting orders. "Shields at 12%, multiple hull breaches, but we're holding together," Ortiz reported. "The rest of the fleet is reporting in. Casualties are high, but we did it, Captain. The Chalnoth threat has been neutralized." As the reality of their victory sank in, Vasquez allowed herself a moment of relief. But she knew that their work was not nearly finished. The war might be won, but now came the real challenge: building a lasting peace. "Open a channel to Admiral Crawford," she ordered, straightening her uniform. It's time to plan our next steps. As the comm system crackled to life, Vasquez gazed out at the transformed black hole, a symbol of the new era they were about to enter. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew that humanity and its allies were ready to face them together.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.